Imagine a spirit forged in the deepest shadows, sharpened into an instrument of destruction, sent forth to dismantle a rising leader. But in the very heart of the mission, amidst the perceived enemy, a profound truth began to emerge, one that would not only halt her devastating purpose but shatter the very foundations of her existence, leading her soul toward an unexpected, breathtaking salvation. Before we unveil this extraordinary tale of transformation and truth, take a moment to subscribe to our channel. Join our community and never miss another story that challenges your perceptions and stirs your heart. Elara was a phantom, a whisper in the wind, a meticulously crafted weapon honed by years of rigorous training in the shadows of a clandestine world. Her childhood was a distant, fragmented memory, replaced by the relentless discipline of an organization that saw humanity not as individuals but as pawns in a grand, geopolitical game, shaping her identity from its very core. She learned to observe without being seen, to move without leaving a trace, and to execute with chilling precision, her emotions systematically suppressed into a cold, efficient resolve. Her mind became a fortress, impenetrable to doubt, singularly focused on the objectives handed down by her unseen masters. The target was IBRAHIM TRAORÉ, a figure whose meteoric rise threatened the established order, a voice resonating with the aspirations of a people long silenced and exploited. Her handlers painted him as a dangerous demagogue, a destabilizing force whose radical vision would plunge the region into chaos and threaten the delicate balance of power they so meticulously maintained. They fed her narratives of his perceived flaws, his audacious defiance, and the potential for his influence to unravel decades of carefully constructed dominance, justifying the extreme measures they deemed necessary to neutralize him. Her mission was clear: to infiltrate his inner circle, expose his vulnerabilities, and orchestrate his downfall, not through brute force, but through a cunning psychological unraveling. Her motivation, or what remained of it, was a complex tapestry woven from a lifetime of indoctrination and a deep-seated belief in the righteousness of her cause, however distorted it might have been. She had been taught that their work ensured global stability, that their interventions, though harsh, prevented wider catastrophes and protected vital interests, making her a crucial, albeit unseen, guardian of the world's fragile peace. This conviction, though cold and detached, gave her actions a grim purpose, lending a sense of duty to the often morally ambiguous tasks she was assigned, turning her into an unyielding instrument of calculated necessity. The specifics of the destruction were meticulously planned, focusing on a campaign of discrediting and isolating Traoré, eroding his popular support and fracturing his alliances from within. It wasn't about a violent end, but a quiet, insidious dismantling of his influence, turning his own people against him through carefully planted seeds of doubt and expertly manipulated public opinion. The goal was to render him irrelevant, his vision extinguished not by overt conflict but by the slow, suffocating grip of engineered disillusionment, leaving him politically paralyzed and stripped of his power. Elara absorbed every detail of Traoré's public life, his speeches, his allies, his perceived weaknesses, crafting an elaborate persona designed to gain his trust. She studied his mannerisms, the cadence of his voice, the passion in his eyes, preparing to mirror aspects of his supporters, to become a shadow in his periphery, observing, learning, waiting for the opportune moment. Her heart, long dormant, remained unmoved by the fervor she witnessed in his followers. She saw only targets, vulnerabilities, and pathways to achieve her objective, a cold, calculating analysis of human behavior. Her departure for the mission was devoid of ceremony, a silent passage from one shadow to another, carrying the weight of her assignment with an almost serene detachment. There was no room for hesitation, no space for personal feelings, only the stark reality of the task at hand and the deeply ingrained imperative to succeed. She was a silent predator, unleashed into a world she was taught to believe was dangerous and chaotic, armed with the formidable tools of manipulation and deception, ready to execute the mission that defined her very existence. Elara's arrival in the vibrant, bustling heart of Traoré's world was a masterclass in subtlety, a seamless integration into the rhythms of everyday life, melting into the crowds like a drop of water in an ocean. She had chosen a disguise that was not flamboyant but effortlessly blended, allowing her to move freely, observe unnoticed, and gather intelligence without raising a single eyebrow. Every gesture, every spoken word, every interaction was carefully calibrated, a performance so convincing that even the most seasoned observers would have seen nothing but an ordinary citizen going about her daily routines, making her presence virtually invisible. Her meticulous planning extended to every facet of her infiltration, from the carefully constructed backstory she presented to the genuine friendships she cultivated with people in Traoré's orbit. She spent weeks, then months, building connections, earning trust, and becoming an indispensable, albeit unassuming, part of the social fabric that surrounded the leader. This deliberate, patient approach allowed her to gradually close the distance, moving from the outer rings of his influence to the inner sanctum, her proximity growing closer with each passing day. As she drew nearer, Alara began to observe Traoré not through the filtered lens of her handler's propaganda, but through the unfiltered reality of his daily interactions. She saw a man who spoke directly to his people, not with polished rhetoric, but with raw, unvarnished honesty, addressing their grievances with an almost palpable empathy. His speeches were not just political addresses. They were heartfelt dialogues, filled with promises of a better future, but also stark acknowledgments of the arduous struggles ahead, a refreshing candor she had not been prepared to encounter. She witnessed moments of genuine humility, where Traoré would listen intently to the concerns of ordinary citizens, his gaze steady and respectful, his responses thoughtful and devoid of condescension. He walked among them, unpretentious and approachable, sharing their simple meals and listening to their stories, fostering a deep, almost familial bond that transcended the typical chasm between leader and led. These intimate observations chipped away at the hardened image she had been given, revealing a complexity she was not equipped to understand, sowing the first subtle seeds of doubt within her meticulously ordered mind. The internal conflict began as a faint tremor, an almost imperceptible dissonance between the mission she was sent to accomplish and the emerging reality before her eyes. The man she was tasked to destroy did not fit the caricature painted by her superiors. He was not a power-hungry tyrant, but a leader deeply committed to his people's welfare, demonstrating a genuine compassion that was both disarming and profoundly perplexing. This nascent confusion was a dangerous crack in her resolve, threatening to compromise years of unyielding training and a lifetime of unwavering loyalty to her shadowy benefactors. With each passing day, as she delved deeper into his world, the lines between her manufactured persona and her true self began to blur, creating an unsettling duality within her consciousness. The initial ease with which she had performed her deception gave way to a growing unease, a gnawing sensation that questioned the very foundation of her beliefs. The more she observed Traoré's unwavering commitment, and the profound hope he ignited in his people, the more fragile her own convictions became, pulling her deeper into an unforeseen moral labyrinth from which escape seemed increasingly impossible. The moment of direct encounter arrived subtly, not in a grand, staged meeting, but during a community gathering where Alara, by now a trusted albeit peripheral figure, found herself in close proximity to Traoré. He moved through the crowd, engaging everyone with an unassuming warmth, and in a fleeting instant, his gaze met hers, not with suspicion or judgment, but with a surprising, gentle curiosity. It was a brief, unremarkable exchange for him, perhaps, but for Alara, it was a profound shift, the first time her fabricated reality truly collided with his undeniable presence, a moment frozen in the intricate dance of her deception. Later, during a small, informal discussion about the nation's future, Alara heard his words not as a target to be dissected, but as a philosophy to be absorbed, their resonance slowly seeping into the very core of her guarded being. He spoke of resilience, of the unyielding spirit of his people, and of the fundamental human right to dignity and self-determination, themes that echoed with an unexpected truth that transcended political rhetoric. His voice, calm yet imbued with a fierce conviction, spoke of a unity that would lift them all, a collective endeavor built on trust and shared sacrifice, not on division or manipulation. He articulated a vision where the nation's resources would serve its own people, where justice was not a privilege, but a fundamental right, and where the voices of the marginalized would finally be heard and respected. These were not mere political promises but deeply held convictions, delivered with an authenticity that stripped away Alara's cynical defenses, revealing the profound integrity underlying his ambitious goals. His words painted a picture of a future free from external interference, a self-reliant nation rising from the ashes of past exploitation, a concept both radical and undeniably appealing. The power of his conviction lay in its simplicity and its unwavering focus on the human element, appealing directly to the innate desire for fairness and respect. He spoke of reclaiming sovereignty not just over land, but over minds, a phrase that struck Alara with an unforeseen force, piercing through the layers of her own mental conditioning. It was a call to awaken, to break free from the invisible chains of manipulation, ironically mirroring the very chains that bound her to her own mission, creating a profound, disorienting echo within her. His words began to challenge every preconceived notion, every piece of propaganda carefully implanted by her handlers. The image of a dangerous extremist slowly crumbled, replaced by the portrait of a leader driven by genuine love for his people and an unwavering commitment to their liberation, not personal gain. The stark contrast between the narrative she was fed and the reality she witnessed became too glaring to ignore, forcing her to confront the unsettling possibility that she had been profoundly, tragically misled, her entire worldview shaken to its very foundations. The growing internal struggle manifested as a constant, gnawing ache in her conscience, a battle between duty and a burgeoning sense of moral responsibility. Her resolve, once as solid as bedrock, began to fragment, each resonant word from Traoré creating another hairline crack in its structure. She found herself not just listening for vulnerabilities, but truly hearing his message, allowing its transformative power to seep into the deepest recesses of her soul, setting in motion an irreversible shift that threatened to derail everything she had ever known. Driven by an insatiable, newfound need for clarity, Alara embarked on a covert, independent deep dive into Traoré's history, cross-referencing every claim and counterclaim, seeking truth beyond the official narratives. She accessed encrypted archives, spoke to former associates, and pieced together a mosaic of his life, discovering that the accusations leveled against him were often exaggerated, distorted, or outright fabricated, designed to demonize a man who simply dared to challenge the status quo. Her investigation revealed a consistent pattern of selfless leadership and a clear vision for his nation's genuine progress, starkly contradicting the insidious tales she had been fed. The full weight of the deception crashed down upon her with a sickening clarity, an avalanche of realization that left her breathless and profoundly disoriented. She wasn't just a pawn in a geopolitical game, she was an unwitting participant in a grand, malicious scheme to undermine a man who genuinely sought the betterment of his people. The organization that had shaped her, that she had implicitly trusted, was not a force for stability but an architect of discord, manipulating truths and lives for its own self-serving interests, using her as a blind instrument of their will. The moral crisis she faced was agonizing, tearing at the very fabric of her being, forcing her to choose between fulfilling a mission built on lies and embracing a truth that could cost her everything. Her training screamed at her to complete the task, to remain loyal to the masters who had given her purpose, however dark it might be. Yet, the echoes of Traoré's words, his vision of dignity and self-determination, resonated deeper, igniting a powerful, unshakable conviction that her true purpose lay not in destruction, but in safeguarding a nascent hope. The danger of her position became terrifyingly real. To question her handlers, to deviate from the prescribed path, was to invite swift and brutal retribution from an organization that tolerated no dissent. She was an asset, and assets that became liabilities were summarily neutralized, a fate she knew intimately from witnessing the disappearances of others who had wavered in their loyalty. Every step away from her mission was a step closer to becoming a target herself, the hunter becoming the hunted in a deadly, silent game played in the shadows she once commanded. The emotional turmoil was a relentless storm within her, a tempest of betrayal, fear, and a burgeoning sense of profound liberation. She grappled with the devastating realization that her entire life, her very identity, had been built on a foundation of falsehoods, serving a cause antithetical to her emerging values. Yet, amidst the despair, there was a glimmer of defiant hope, a nascent strength forged in the crucible of her newfound understanding, empowering her to choose a path of integrity, no matter the perilous consequences. She understood now that her true fight was not against Traoré, but against the very forces that sought to suppress truth and manipulate destinies, including her own. The decision was agonizing but ultimately clear. She could not be an instrument of injustice. Her transformation was complete, a fundamental shift from a weapon of destruction to a nascent protector of truth, ready to face the unknown consequences of her choice, guided only by the moral compass she had so unexpectedly discovered within herself. Ilara's decision to abandon her mission was not a moment of sudden, dramatic defiance, but a quiet, internal turning point, a profound reorientation of her entire being. She meticulously began to dismantle her carefully constructed persona, not with an abrupt exit, but by subtly altering her trajectory, diverting resources, and planting misdirection, buying herself precious time to disappear from the watchful eyes of her former masters. It was a perilous game of cat and mouse, where every calculated move was a step closer to either freedom or utter annihilation, pushing her to the very limits of her cunning and composure. The consequences of her choice were immediate and severe, a chilling reminder of the unforgiving nature of the world she had abandoned. Safe houses were compromised, digital trails vanished, and whispers of her treachery reached the ears of those who had once commanded her loyalty, turning her into a ghost hunted by phantoms. She lost everything she had ever known: her false identity, her perceived purpose, the shadowy network that had been her only family. But in shedding these chains, she gained something far more invaluable: the freedom of her own conscience and the true direction of her life. Her transformation was not merely an abandonment of her past but an active embrace of a new, profound purpose, one deeply rooted in the principles Traoré's words had awakened within her. She became an unseen guardian of truth, using the very skills she had honed for destruction to subtly expose the machinations of the forces she once served, revealing their deceptions to those willing to listen. She recognized that the true battle was for the hearts and minds of people, fought not with weapons, but with the unwavering light of honesty and transparency, making her a silent force for justice. The ultimate impact of Traoré's words on Ilara's life was nothing short of miraculous, a profound spiritual awakening that transcended the political realm. His unwavering belief in the inherent dignity of his people, his commitment to justice, and his courageous stand against oppression had not only saved her from becoming an instrument of injustice but had illuminated the path to her own redemption. She found her humanity again, not in the cold calculations of a mission, but in the warmth of shared ideals and the profound recognition of universal values, making her whole once more. Her new purpose evolved into a silent crusade, a dedication to empowering others with knowledge, encouraging them to question narratives, and to seek truth independently, just as she had been forced to do. She became a quiet advocate for the very values she had once been sent to destroy, her past defining her present not as a burden, but as a crucible from which true understanding had emerged. The shadows that once defined her now served as a cloak for her quiet acts of defiance, protecting her as she worked to dismantle the very systems that had created her. Ultimately, Ilara's journey from a hardened instrument of destruction to a beacon of truth was a testament to the enduring power of genuine leadership and the transformative potential of human connection. Her story is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest corners of deception, a single voice speaking with integrity can pierce through the greatest lies, igniting a spark of conscience that redefines purpose and ultimately saves a soul from the precipice of its own destruction, leading it towards an unforeseen, profound light. This journey from shadow to light, from destruction to salvation, reminds us that true power lies not in force, but in the unwavering conviction of one's words. If this profound story resonated with you, please give us a like, share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to our channel for more narratives that illuminate the human spirit.